All right, so welcome to my guitar class. This will be videos that will supplement a written free book that will be available to anyone in my class and also anyone who wants to listen to my guitar class who's not affiliated with the guitar class. So the way I design this course and the way I think about a beginning guitar class is I try to give you sort of the broad view of different types of guitar learning and guitar playing with a realistic approach about how much a student can do or how much a person with a job can do. But I kind of cover the whole gamut of stuff in 3 sections. The first section covers just how to hold the guitar, how to learn how to read chords and play chords, where notes are at on the guitar, some basic exercises. And then the second section, we talk about the blues progression. Specifically, we add bar chords with the blues progression along with power chords that we will have talked about a little bit in the first part. And then we'll show you how to improvise and solo using a pentatonic scale, which is a very common scale form that we use in pop music and blues music and all sorts of non-Western music. And then lastly, I sort of consider the reading music and last part of the class to be things pertaining to Western notation and reading music and playing with a classical technique. Now that kind of encompasses a lot of stuff, but that's how I designed this. And this is just my take on this course. There is a lot of ways, a lot of different ways to design this and a lot of different thoughts out there. So by all means, take the things that I say here and look someone else's information up and try to learn from them too. So the first thing, I will not go over the actual syllabus for my class here. We'll write that out and that's something that you can read. And this, of course, if you are not taking this as a course and you're just doing this for fun, well, it doesn't pertain to you at all. But I'll go over that in class and I will go over that in writing too, just in the syllabus, and this will be in a document somewhere that you can have access to. I also too, with this book, these videos, I think that the best way to do any of this is with an actual human instructor, to have someone to guide you through these things, to see what you're doing that isn't efficient, or to see how you can improve your practicing, or it's still best to work with a person. So a guitar teacher is someone that can help you if you're working with someone else. These topics, any competent guitar teacher can guide you through this material if this is something that you're interested in. So anyways, so that's this, and feel free, you can email me even if you're not in my class. My information is accessible online. So, all right. So the first thing I like to talk about with guitar is something that I think is underappreciated with the instrument, is just how to sit with a guitar. And then also the issues that come up with different types of guitar. I personally always recommend you start with a classical guitar. I think that works best for 95% of the people. A classical instrument works best to learn how to play the guitar. That is not because I am primarily a classical guitarist. I just think that the instrument itself is designed for most of the population to use classical guitar, just the way the instrument is built, the way you hold it. The scale is right for most people. So take that or leave it, but I will show you the other guitars and how the issues that come up in sitting with guitars. So first of all, so there's the first guitar I'll start with is just the classical instrument, sort of my preferred way of sitting with a guitar. I actually tend to prefer this position. So this is the classical position. I think it works best in terms of how your hands are set up, how it keeps your back straight and even, and how it makes it so both your hands and your body are just in the right place to play guitar. The upper bout, I always say, have it hit you somewhere in the middle of your rib cage. Just directly in line with your chin. Mine kind of falls just to the left side of my body with the guitar. But this position is sort of what I would advocate for. And the written material book that I'll copy inside of this book for reading music has some great documents and some great pictures with angles that really align with how I think this stuff should be set up. So for this position, everything I think has the most ease in playing. You can also play, if you don't like that, you can play with the guitar on your right leg. This is, people call it the folk position. And that's fine too. That works. Lots of great guitar players do this. You can pivot the instrument out. You can tuck it in a little bit more if that works better for you. But the folk way of playing, or the right leg position, is a very popular, probably the most popular way to play the guitar. But I still think it has some limitations. I won't get into all the details of that here, but I think it doesn't work as well as the classical position. So let me just show you another thing too that I think is less talked about with guitar, and that is the fact that instruments are different sizes. This is a acoustic guitar, and you'll notice this is significantly bigger, and also the waist of the guitar doesn't have as much. It's much fatter in the middle of the instrument. So when you're holding the guitar, this is incredibly different. My arm is higher, my hands are in different positions just by the nature of the body. That's very unique to guitar. If you play flute, if you play violin, if you play piano, those are all standardized. You're not going to have different sizes of instruments, but that's something that happens with guitar. So if you sit with this guitar in a classical position, you can still do it, and I would still recommend it. It is a little more of a leg stretch, so your right leg has to come out a little bit farther. That's sort of the extra dimensions you have here on the bout. And the other thing about the acoustic guitar is that the guitar typically hits the upper, the top of the guitar here. The heel of the guitar come to the 14th fret typically, not the 12th fret, whereas the classical guitar comes to the 12th fret. And then lastly, if you have an electric guitar, these are the most wild of any instruments. Whenever you are playing an electric guitar, you can have guitars that quite literally can look like anything. There's guitars that are the size of, there's a guitar that just has the pickups. I've seen instruments that are incredibly small. I've seen some guitars that have bodies that are literally as big as a human. So they can make these shapes into almost anything. I encourage you to try different guitars out and see which one works for you if you want an electric guitar. The same thing is true with the electric instrument. I still recommend putting the guitar in the middle of your body like this. I think that works better. But again, this is typically an electric guitar is much smaller. The body is really tiny. So you can bring it on this leg, but again, then your back's a little twisted, and I think it doesn't work quite as well. And if you wanted to, you can also raise your right leg up to bring this up with a footstool or something else. I didn't bring this here, but you can also bring supports, something that will actually put on the guitar. That's the way I tend to play when I play electric guitar. I use a support to raise it up to my body, and I think that just feels infinitely more comfortable. Guitar strap can work too, but that puts a lot of pressure on your back, so that's just a simple device that goes over, ties onto these two buttons, and makes it so you can hold the guitar and walk around with it if you want to try that too. So anyways, so that's just something to consider, and if you have not purchased a guitar and are just starting this journey, I highly recommend you get a classical instrument. You can find an inexpensive classical guitar. There's tons of used ones out there, but getting an instrument will make a huge difference in getting a classical instrument and how you feel, I think, with the guitar. So all right, so then just talking about the instrument, and I'll use the classical guitar just for most of this video just to explain everything. So talking about the guitar, and this will be in written form too. How we label strings on the guitar: this is the 6th string, this is the 5th string, 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, and 1st string. So the biggest string is the largest number. The names of the strings, this is just something I like everybody to memorize, is E, A, D, G, B, and E. So just memorize that. That's something to just have under your belt and know how to know those strings. Just memorize it, say it 20 times or whatever, but you just want to know that. And this is another thing too. Tuning a guitar is actually sometimes a little more cumbersome than people let on. But how I recommend in the beginning certainly is get yourself a free online tuner. You can use a phone. You can also buy tuners if you are so inclined. But on an iPhone or an Android phone, there are tons of options for just a free tuner that you can get these strings in tune. It's pretty simple to do. How you tune the guitar, you just use these little things. These are called machine heads, and you tune them. So if you want to go higher, you tune the guitar typically to the right. You want to go lower, you turn it this way towards you. And so it's a very simple thing. Just don't pop a string. I've seen this before where people are trying to tune a guitar and they're tuning up the wrong string. That is a common problem with first learning to tune a guitar. So anyways, so then the frets of the guitar, we call these things right here are frets. So that's first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret. Just label it like numbers, right? And you can think of the frets sort of when you're playing them. This is the fret. You're gonna put your finger just behind the fret. So again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the actual fret itself, that's the first fret, the piece of metal. You don't put your finger on it, but you put your finger just behind it. But that's how you label the frets. So basically, when you're talking about something, it's kind of like a game of Battleship, if that game is still popular out there. You kind of say, okay, this is the fourth string at the fourth fret. So you go, okay, fourth string, 6, 5, 4. And then you go, okay, fourth fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's how you can always, it's a universal way of talking about the guitar. Other parts of the instrument, this is the lower bout, the upper bout, the neck, and the head of the guitar. That's pretty straightforward there. So that is the guitar. If you break a string, there are plenty of ways. I will talk about this in my class. I always do a string changing day, but there are plenty of ways to learn how to change strings. It's not hard to do. Any of you can figure this out very easily. Just check out. I will link some YouTube videos, but it's very simple. Don't throw the guitar away over something. Okay, so the first exercise I always like to talk about here, and if you are in my class, this will be in the syllabus here, is this exercise doing walking. So I always like to start with walking exercise, and I'm going to use a pick. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the class. I'm going to use a pick, playing with a pick. So we'll talk about why I'm doing that in the beginning, and we'll talk about some fingerstyle stuff at the end. But I'll show you how to use a pick and to use your left hand and to use your fingers. So anyways, let's actually start with that concept. So the first exercise for the right hand I like to do is just this picking exercise. And when you're using a pick, I advocate for a hand position something like this. So you're putting the pick sort of just here and your hand is lightly moving like that. There are plenty of great guitar players that play with their fingers, the tips of their fingers like this. You can do that too. I'm not, you can experiment, but I think this works the absolute best. So when you're playing with the pick, your hand is kind of moving up and down the string. I like to think about your arm, sort of like the elbow can kind of move up and down. And then you also, something to consider is you can manipulate the angle at which you're attacking the strings. It's probably something you want to worry about later down the road, but it makes a difference in how the tone is. The other thing with guitar picking is you want to play on both sides of the pick. So you want to go down, you want to up, down and up. You don't want to just use just down strokes or just up strokes. You want to make it an even thing that goes down and up. So the sixth string, if you're playing on the sixth string here, you just would establish some kind of pulse inside of your gut, or you can use a metronome or whatever, and just go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and the next string, down, up, down, up, down, up, and the next string, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and you get it? So you just go up the strings like this. Okay, and also too, there's many different types of picks. I tend to like these smaller picks, but you can experiment with using a bigger pick, thinner pick. There's no right or wrong with the picks. You can use whatever you want. There are thousands of picks out there to choose from. So have fun going to your local music shop. And if you get comfortable with that, and I recommend if you can do that exercise, just that for 20 minutes a day, you'll have that really well under your fingers. You can move up and down the strings and it'll make everything we do later on much easier. So the other thing you can try is if you get comfortable with that concept and you want to try doing skipping strings. So you can go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now I'm going to the fourth string, right? Right, you get the idea. So you can switch strings going from 6 to 4 to 5 or 6 to 3. You can bounce around with the pick, and that's a helpful thing to try to get yourself comfortable with it. But again, there's no need for that at first. You can just experiment with using, just experiment with rhythms or experiment. But the first thing is just playing up and down with that pick. That is the best way to learn how to use a pick, in my opinion. So, okay, and we'll come back to some more pick things later on here. Then the other exercise I always like to advocate for is just trying to figure out the walking exercise, how to fret a note. So the first thing is just try to make a note fret. And what you're doing when you're playing a note is you're just getting enough pressure on the string to make it press up against that piece of metal, which is called the fret. And then you're fretting a note, right? It's a noun and a verb, right? This is, you're to fret and fret. Those are the same things, right? So when you put your finger here, the first thing you might get a little bit of a thud. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a thud. Just experiment with how you can get more sound out of that, so it doesn't buzz and it doesn't sound thuddy. And so when you're doing that, try to make sure I like the idea too of feeling like your fingers are sort of like this. So you're kind of touching with the tip of your finger as opposed to the flat part of your finger. Generally speaking, for people, it winds up having your thumb somewhere in the middle of the neck. Not always, but typically that's how it looks. So your finger should sort of be like this. You're trying to just get that tip of the finger as opposed to playing like this. If you play like this, that causes all sorts of pressure problems, and you're distributing the weight from your hand on one, on a wider spot, whereas you just want it to go on one spot. So that's how you practice this exercise, and this is called walking. This is a wonderful exercise, one of my favorites. And you just take this, and you take your first finger, and you go like this. And it's not the most exciting thing. I'm a little bit out of tune here, but it's all right. But you just go up the neck with your first finger on each of the frets. So I'm on the 3rd fret now. I'm on the 4th fret now with my first finger. And another kind of concept is you want to make sure the notes are connected as much as you possibly can make them connected. Try to connect the notes so it's not. And also to make sure it's even. You can try this, and you should try this with each of your fingers. So try it with your second finger going up the neck. You don't have to do it fast. I'll just demonstrate this a little bit quicker. In fact, don't do it fast. But you can go up and down the neck with your second finger. And then you can try doing each finger for 12 frets all the way up to the 12th fret. Or if you don't have time, you can try and just kind of alternate as you're going up. So now I'm using my 3rd finger going up the neck. Right, I'm on the 7th fret with my 3rd finger, 8th fret with my 3rd finger, and then I can try my 4th finger. Okay, so when you're practicing that, it's a great exercise along with the picking exercise to try to get you just a basic technical grounds for going forward. And this is something that I think is talked about very little in guitar. You would never go to a flute lesson or a clarinet lesson or a piano lesson and say, oh, just hold it whatever random way you want. With guitar, that sadly, that's a very common thing in instruction. I think that's wrong. So doing these exercises will set you up for success for everything that you do later on down the road with any kind of music that you're going to do. This applies to almost everything. And then lastly, this is something that you can try later on, but there's one other exercise that's a common exercise that people do, and it's just this chromatic exercise where you go up the neck like this. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 on the 5th string now, using each of my fingers on the consecutive frets. This is a good exercise to do too, and it gets your pick, or your fingers as it were, kind of in sync with one another. You can try doing it from a different spot on the guitar. The frets get smaller as you go up on the guitar. So if you try it at the 5th fret or whatever, the 8th fret, it's much easier to do typically. So you can try any spot that works for your hand. Make sure it's comfortable at first. But again, the idea with that is you're keeping it very even, and you're keeping it very connected and very on the money with that stuff. So anyways, so what I'd like to try now is if you put those two things, together, and if you're feeling like you're comfortable with all of this stuff, you can try and do the same exercise with different rhythms. So again, this is something you can do down the road, but trying to do dotted rhythms. And you don't even know what that means, and that's fine, but try different rhythms with any of those exercises. Because that's more true to music, to actual music that you'll play down the road, than playing it just completely evenly. But the most important thing is to getting this evenly. And this is something you can work on every day, and you could work on it for a few months before you do anything else. And it'll set you up for a great, successful guitar run. So those are the beginning exercises, but as we go through this book, I think it's probably one of the most important things we're going to talk about, and you can come back to this and never stop doing those. If you're in my class, I don't talk about these every day just for time, but if you're doing this and you're just doing this for fun, you can do however you want, of course, but try to do them every day. It's the best warm-up thing. I still do exercises, and my good friend here who's recording does exercises every day. Everybody who plays guitar does exercises if you're doing this right. So try and keep that in mind as you go forward with this book. All right, so we're going to go on to the week 2 material. And so this is, and I just call this week 2. This can be for you, the YouTube audience here. You can do this in any order you want to. But this material is covering chords, and we'll talk about how to read those chord charts. And I will put some of those, I'll put a bunch of information about this inside of the actual document, the paper document, and it'll be free for you online as well. But I'll put this inside of the document to take a look at. There's more material than just this, but I wanted to explain how to read these things and sort of explain how to figure out how to play them with right here, right now, so you'll understand it. I wouldn't do these until you're comfortable with the walking exercises. That's sort of the first thing. But the second part is you can start to put down multiple notes, and that can help you getting better at this stuff.